Meanwhile, the fighting at Israel's northern border with Lebanon has also escalated in recent weeks, with near daily exchanges of fire between Israel and Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah. Citing increasingly bellicose rhetoric from both sides, the UN Secretary General warned Friday that Lebanon must not become another Gaza. Here's Antonio Guterres.
The risk for the conflict in the Middle East to widen is real and must be avoided. One rash move, one miscalculation could trigger a catastrophe that goes far beyond the border and, frankly, beyond imagination.
For more, I'm joined on set by our international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorjestani. Kethevane, hello. We heard those latest words from Antonio Guterres. Just how significant is this latest fighting at the Israel-Lebanon border?
Well, look, there have been nearly daily cross-border fighting since October 7th between Israel and Hezbollah. And there have been regularly some flare-ups where you see an intensifying of this fire. And this past week is one of those flare-ups. And the bellicose rhetoric that Guterres was warning about is actually real. You saw on Tuesday the Israeli military put out a statement saying that they had plans for an military offensive in Lebanon, and they said that those plans had been approved and validated, not that they would put them to execution, but that they had those plans. Then on Wednesday, you had Hassan Nasrallah, who is the head of Hezbollah, who said that no place in Israel would be spared if there was a full-out war against Hezbollah. And then you saw it sort of tit-for-tat strikes across the border, the Israelis killing Hezbollah operative, Hezbollah retaliating with a series of strikes. And this, over the past few months, has meant that there have been tens of thousands of people displaced on both sides of the border, and hundreds killed, mostly on the Lebanese border, but also on the Israeli border. Now, obviously, if there is a full-out war, and this is something that has concerned the international community for months now, Israel is a very big and strong army, and so it has the means to do a lot of damage in Israel. And actually, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that if it were to happen, they would turn Beirut into Gaza. So that gives you an idea of what could happen. But at the same time, Hezbollah is not Hamas. They're much stronger, much better equipped. They have much stronger weapons, more missiles, and they could also inflict a lot more damage on Israel than Hamas has been able to. And there are concerns, especially among allies of Israel, including the United States, that Israel's famed Iron Dome could be overwhelmed by the number of missiles. They could stop some, but they might not be able to stop all of it. And that is why this is something that everyone is paying very close attention to, and that everyone, whether it's in the region or in the United States, is trying to use their sort of pressure on both sides to try to keep this at a sort of flare-up and avoid it becoming a full-blown war between the Israeli army and Hezbollah.
And speaking of the United States, Kethevane, in this context, Israel has received a pledge of full support from the U.S. That's despite there being increasing tension between the two allies.
Yes, and those reassurances came in person when Israeli officials were in Washington earlier this week, meeting at high level with their counterparts in the United States, and the U.S. Officials basically telling them, we will have your back, we will support you and help you in the case of a full-blown war with Hezbollah. The U.S., as I said, has been trying to avoid this escalation for months now. Antony Blinken was in the region talking about this. They had their envoy to go to Lebanon to speak with a Lebanese official and try to avoid this. But there is a significant importance in the fact that the Americans are putting this out there. It's because of those tensions between the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the U.S. President Joe Biden. Earlier this week, there was this video in English by Benjamin Netanyahu, where he basically accused the U.S. Of withholding weapons and ammunitions in recent months. Response from the White House, very clear, very strong. The press secretary saying we genuinely don't know what he's talking about. And the spokesperson for the National Security Council, John Kirby, saying that it was disappointing and vexing, and most importantly, not true. There is, of course, that one shipment of 2,000-pound bombs that has been paused by the Americans as they're reviewing it, and they're reviewing their policy because they're concerned that these mass bombs could be used in high-density areas like in Rafah or elsewhere in Gaza, and that is why they've paused this, but that is the single shipment that has been paused, and that's what the White House is pointing to, saying everything else has been going to the Israelis. We've been providing weapons and ammunitions for several months now and several years, obviously. And so this is completely wrong. Benjamin Netanyahu seemingly doubling down on his criticism because he said on Thursday that he was prepared to suffer personal attacks provided that Israel receives the ammunition from the U.S. that it needs in the war for its existence. So he's sort of going at it again, even though the Americans are sort of publicly saying, you need to stop this. This is absolutely not true. Yet the Americans are showing the fact that despite all the problems between administrations, they are there to support Israel's right to defend itself. That's the policy of the United States. That's the message of the United States, sort of putting aside the frictions between the leaders to reiterate their support for the state of Israel and their ability to defend themselves against a possible attack from Hezbollah.
Yeah, probably hoping it's going to work as a deterrent to a larger war. Kethevane, thank you so much for that. As always, that's our international affairs editor there, Kethevane Gorjestani.